The rain drummed against the windows of the Metropolitan Art Gallery as Leonardo Montenegro adjusted his platinum watch. At 32, he had built a technology empire worth billions, yet tonight felt different. The charity exhibition for underprivileged children seemed more meaningful than his usual social obligations. Leonardo moved through the crowded gallery with practiced ease. His charcoal suit, tailored to perfection, commanded respect from every person he passed. Business associates nodded. Socialites smiled warmly, and investors sought his attention. But something was missing from this familiar dance of wealth and influence. A different kind of beauty near the back corner of the gallery. Away from the main crowd, Leonardo discovered a section dedicated to student artwork. The paintings here lacked the polish of professional pieces, but they radiated something more precious than technique. They held pure emotion, untainted by commercial considerations. One painting stopped him completely. It showed a small girl feeding birds in a park, but the way light danced across the canvas spoke of hope triumphing over hardship. The signature reads C. Rivera in delicate script. It tells a story, doesn't it? Leonardo turned to find a young woman observing him. She wore a simple navy dress that complemented her warm brown eyes. Her long, dark hair fell naturally over her shoulders, and her smile held genuine warmth rather than the calculated charm he encountered daily. "Yes, it does," Leonardo replied, studying her face. "Are you familiar with the artist?" "Should be." She laughed softly. "I painted it." The artist behind the magic, Camila Rivera, extended her hand with natural grace. "I teach art at Lincoln Elementary School. This piece represents one of my students who comes from a very difficult home situation, but she never loses her kindness toward others." Leonardo found himself genuinely intrigued. "You captured something special here. The way you've used light to suggest resilience is remarkable." Camila's eyes lit up with surprise. "Most people see it as just a simple painting. You understand art?" "I studied fine arts before technology consumed my life," Leonardo admitted, revealing more about himself than he typically shared with strangers. "Though I've lost touch with that part of myself." Their conversation flowed naturally as they moved through the student section. Camila spoke passionately about her students, their struggles, and their incredible capacity for creativity despite their circumstances. Leonardo found himself drawn to her authenticity in a world where every interaction felt scripted. "An evening of discovery? Would you join me for dinner?" Leonardo asked as the gallery began to empty. "I know a quiet place where we can continue our conversation." Camila hesitated, glancing at her simple dress. "I'm not really dressed for expensive restaurants." "You're dressed perfectly," Leonardo assured her, meaning every word. The restaurant Leonardo chose surprised Camila. Instead of an exclusive establishment, he took her to a family-owned Italian place where the owner greeted him warmly. The atmosphere was intimate without being overwhelming, and the food was exceptional without being pretentious. "This isn't what I expected," Camila confessed as they settled into their table. "What did you expect? Something flashier, more expensive? Isn't that what wealthy people prefer?" Leonardo considered her question seriously. "Wealth often separates you from authentic experiences. This place reminds me of simpler times, when taste mattered more than price." Sharing stories over dinner, Camila told Leonardo about her life in the small town of Millbrook, 2 hours from the city. She described her students, her modest apartment, and her dreams of opening a community art center. Her mother, Rosa, worked double shifts at the local hospital to support Camila's education, never asking for anything in return. Leonardo shared stories that surprised even himself. He spoke about building his company from nothing, the loneliness that accompanied success, and his growing disconnection from the things that once brought him joy. With Camila, these admissions felt natural rather than vulnerable. "Don't you have family nearby?" Camila asked gently. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 25, Leonardo explained. "I threw myself into work afterward. Was easier than dealing with the grief." Camila reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. The gesture was simple but comforting in a way that expensive gifts and elaborate gestures had never been. The connection deepens after dinner. Walk through the quiet city streets. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement gleaming under the streetlights. Leonardo found himself slowing his usual brisk pace to match Camila's more relaxed rhythm. I should head back to my hotel, Camila said, as they reached the corner where their paths would diverge. I have a long drive tomorrow. Stay another day, Leonardo suggested spontaneously. Let me show you the city properly. Camila studied his face in the soft glow of the street lamp. This feels very fast. Sometimes the best things happen quickly, Leonardo replied, then caught himself. I don't usually say things like that. But you meant it? A night of innocence, Leonardo arranged for Camila to stay in a suite at his hotel. He walked her to her door, fighting every instinct that told him to push for more. Something about Camila demanded his respect in ways he hadn't experienced before. Thank you for tonight, Camila said softly. It was magical. Thank you for reminding me that magic still exists. They stood close enough that Leonardo could smell her subtle perfume, could see the trust in her eyes. When he leaned down to kiss her cheek goodnight, she turned slightly, and their lips met instead. The kiss was gentle, tentative, but it carried the weight of genuine emotion. When they separated, both seemed surprised by the intensity of the moment. The next morning, Leonardo called Camila before she could leave for home. Come with me to my lake house this weekend. No pressure, just time to get to know each other better. Leonardo, I barely know you. That's exactly why I'm asking. I want to know you, really know you. And I want you to know the real me, not the public version. After a long pause, Camila agreed. Something in his voice convinced her that this wasn't a casual proposition, but a genuine invitation to explore their connection. The lake house weekend. Leonardo's lake house was beautiful, but not ostentatious. Surrounded by tall pines and overlooking crystal clear water, it felt more like a retreat than a display of wealth. Camila appreciated the thoughtfulness of the setting. They spent the day walking forest trails, preparing meals together and sharing stories by the fireplace. Leonardo cooked breakfast while Camila painted watercolor sketches of the lake. Domestic simplicity felt revolutionary to both of them. As evening approached, the atmosphere between them grew more intimate. They sat on the deck watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The conversation turned to more personal topics, and Camila found herself opening up about her fears and dreams. The moment of truth later that night, as they sat close together on the couch, the attraction between them became impossible to ignore. Leonardo's hand traced the line of Camila's jaw, and she leaned into his touch. When he kissed her this time, it carried the promise of something deeper. Camila, he whispered against her lips. I need you to know that I've never felt this way about anyone. I've never felt this way either, she admitted. Leonardo carried her gently to his bedroom, his hands reverent as he slowly removed her clothes. When he saw the evidence of her innocence, he stopped completely, his breath catching in his throat. Camila, he said softly, you've never been with anyone before. Shh. She nodded, her cheeks flushing pink. Is that strange at 24? The shocking decision what happened next would be talked about in their circles for years to come. Instead of continuing, Leonardo did something that no millionaire in his position had ever done. He carefully covered Camila with a blanket and stepped back. What's wrong? Camila asked, confusion evident in her voice. Nothing is wrong, Leonardo said, his voice thick with emotion. Everything is perfect. That's exactly the problem. He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hands in his. Camila, what you're offering me is precious beyond any measure of wealth I understand. Your first time shouldn't be a weekend fling with someone you barely know. But I trust you, Camila protested. And that trust is sacred, Leonardo replied. Which is why I'm going to honor it properly. Leonardo stood up and began putting on his shirt. I'm going to court you properly, Camila Rivera. I'm going to earn the right to be your first, your only, your forever. Camila stared at him in amazement. You're stopping because you respect me too much. I'm stopping because I love you too. Much to rush something this important. The words hung in the air between them, surprising them both with their truth and intensity. In that moment, Leonardo Montenegro did what no billionaire had ever done before. He chose love over desire, patience over passion, and forever over right now, as Camila processed his words. She realized she was looking at a man who valued her heart more than her body, her future more than his immediate gratification. It was a revelation that would change both their lives forever. Dawn broke gently over the lake as Leonardo sat on the deck with his coffee, watching Camila sleep peacefully through the bedroom window. He had spent the night in the guest room, but sleep had eluded him completely. The decision he made the Previous evening felt both terrifying and absolutely right when Camila emerged. Wrapped in one of his oversized sweaters, her hair tousled from sleep, Leonardo felt his resolve strengthen. Looked beautiful in the morning light, but more importantly, she looked trusting. That trust was something he would protect at all costs. "Good morning," she said softly, settling beside him with her own cup of coffee. "Did you sleep well?" Leonardo asked, though he could see the answer in her relaxed expression. "Better than I have in months," Camila admitted. "Leonardo, about last night?" "No regrets," he said firmly. "What I said, I meant every word." The return to reality, the drive back to the city, was filled with comfortable conversation and stolen glances. Leonardo found himself memorizing details about Camila, the way she hummed along 2 songs on the radio, how she pointed out interesting cloud formations, her genuine excitement when they passed a field of sunflowers. "I have to ask you something," Camila said as the city skyline came into view. "What happens now?" "You live in this world of corporate meetings and social events. I teach children in a small town. How does this work?" Leonardo had been wondering the same thing. "We figure it out together. I don't have all the answers, but I know I don't want this to end." "My mother is going to be suspicious," Camila warned. With a smile, "She's very protective of me." "Good mothers should be," Leonardo replied. "I'd like to meet her if you'll allow it." The unexpected visitor when they arrived at Leonardo's penthouse, Patricia Wells, his assistant, was waiting with an expression of barely controlled panic. "Mr. Montenegro, we have a situation," Patricia announced. "Sebastian Cross has been calling all morning. He says it's urgent." Sebastian Cross was Leonardo's primary business rival, a man who had tried unsuccessfully to buy out Leonardo's company multiple times. The fact that he was calling suggested either a major business crisis or something more personal. "What does he want?" Leonardo asked, his protective instincts already rising as he moved closer to Camila. "He mentioned something about your weekend companion," Patricia said carefully. "I thought you should know before returning his call." Leonardo felt ice in his veins. How could he possibly know about that? "Sir, in our world, privacy is often an illusion," Patricia reminded him gently. The confrontation. Leonardo made the call while Camila waited in his living room, admiring the artwork on his walls. She seemed fascinated by a small sculpture that reminded her of her student's work, imperfect but heartfelt. Sebastian Leonardo answered curtly. "What's so urgent, Leonardo, my friend?" Sebastian's voice carried false warmth. "I hear congratulations are in order. You found yourself a charming little schoolteacher. Get to the point." "The point is that your romantic escapades are about to become very public. I have photographs from the gallery, the restaurant, even your lake house. Imagine how the business community will react when they see the great Leonardo Montenegro playing house with a small-town nobody." Leonardo's grip tightened on the phone. "What do you want? Sell me controlling interest in your company and these photos disappear. Refuse and I'll make sure everyone knows that their technology emperor has gone soft over a naive little girl." The impossible choice. After hanging up, Leonardo stood at his floor 2 ceiling windows, looking out at the city he had conquered through business acumen and careful reputation management. Everything he had built could crumble if Sebastian followed through on his threats. "Is everything all right?" Camila asked, approaching him cautiously. Leonardo turned to face her, and in that moment, he made his second unprecedented decision. "Camila, there's something you need to know about my world. Sometimes loving someone puts them in danger." He explained Sebastian's threats, watching as understanding dawned in Camila's eyes. She didn't panic or demand he choose between her and his business. Instead, she listened thoughtfully. "So he's trying to use me against you?" Camila said finally. "Yes. You're worried that being with me will destroy everything you've worked for." "The thought had crossed my mind," Leonardo admitted. The teacher's lesson. Camila walked to the sculpture she had been admiring earlier, running her fingers along its imperfect surface. "One of my students made something like this," she said quietly. "Her name is Emma, and she comes from a broken home. Her father left, her mother works 3 jobs, and she never has nice clothes or expensive supplies." Leonardo waited, sensing this story had a purpose. "But Emma creates the most beautiful art because she pours her heart into it. She doesn't care if it's perfect or if other people approve. She creates from love, not fear. Camila turned to face Leonardo. You can live your life afraid of what people like Sebastian might do, or you can live it from a place of love. But you can't do both. The public declaration the next morning, instead of calling Sebastian back, Leonardo did something that shocked the entire business community. He held a press conference, standing before cameras and reporters with Camila by his side. Leonardo made an announcement that would be replayed on business networks for weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Camila Rivera, the woman I intend to marry. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Leonardo continued calmly. Miss Rivera is an art teacher who has shown me that success without love is just expensive emptiness. Any business associates who have a problem with my personal choices are welcome to end our professional relationships. I'd rather build a smaller empire with integrity than maintain a large one built on fear. Camila squeezed his hand, her pride evident in her glowing smile. The aftermath Sebastian's threats proved toothless. The business community, rather than being scandalized, was intrigued by Leonardo's authentic display of emotion. Several major clients expressed admiration for his integrity, and his company's stock actually rose following the press conference. More importantly, public declaration had freed Leonardo from the constant fear of exposure. He could love Camila openly, without worry about who might be watching or photographing them. You realize what you've just done? Camila asked as they left the press conference. I've chosen love over fear, Leonardo replied. Something I never thought I'd be brave enough to do. Meeting the mother 2 weeks later, Leonardo found himself sitting in Rosa Rivera's modest living room in Millbrook, nervously adjusting his tie. He had flown in his private jet, but asked the pilot to land at a regional airport an hour away. Then drove a rental car to avoid seeming ostentatious. Rosa Rivera was a formidable woman who clearly adored her daughter. She served homemade empanadas and studied Leonardo with the intensity of a protective mother bear. So you're the millionaire who thinks he's good enough for my Camila, Rosa said directly. Actually, Mrs. Rivera, I'm not sure anyone is good enough for your daughter, but I love her completely, and I'll spend my life trying to be worthy of her. Rosa's stern expression softened slightly. And what happens when you get bored with playing house? That won't happen, Leonardo said with quiet conviction. Camila has shown me what real happiness looks like. I've been successful in business, but I've never been truly happy until I met her. The ring that evening, as they walked through Millbrook's small downtown area, Leonardo led Camila to the local jewelry store. It was nothing like the exclusive boutiques he usually frequented, but it felt right for this moment. Mr. Montenegro, the elderly jeweler said, clearly honored by the unexpected visit. How can I help you? I need an engagement ring, Leonardo said, but not something flashy or expansive looking. Something that reflects who she really is. It selected a simple but elegant solitaire diamond set in white gold. It was beautiful without being ostentatious. It's perfect without being pretentious. When Leonardo proposed that night under the stars in Rosa's backyard, Camila's tears of joy told. Him he had chosen correctly. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Leonardo realized that this was what true wealth looked like, not the numbers in his bank account, but the love shining in Camila's eyes. 6 months later, the entire business world was talking about Leonardo Montenegro's wedding. Instead of the lavish society event everyone expected, Leonardo and Camila chose to marry in Millbrook's small church, surrounded by her students, his employees, and the community that had shaped her values. Camila walked down the aisle in her grandmother's simple lace dress. It altered to fit her perfectly. She carried sunflowers from Rosa's garden instead of expensive orchids. Leonardo waited at the altar in a classic black tuxedo, his eyes never leaving her face. You are the most beautiful bride I've ever seen, he whispered as she reached him. You are the most handsome groom, she replied, her voice steady despite her nervous excitement. The vows that changed everything when it came time for their vows. Leonardo surprised everyone by speaking from his heart rather than reciting traditional words. Camila, 6 months ago, I thought success meant having the most money, the biggest company, the most impressive possessions. You taught me that real success means having someone to share your life with who loves you for who you are, not what you own. His voice grew stronger as he continued. You showed me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in moments of genuine connection. I promise to love you not because you make me feel successful, but because you make me feel human. Vows were equally moving. Leonardo, you could have had any woman in the world, but you chose to wait for me, to court me properly, to respect my values even when they were different from yours. You showed me that a man's character isn't defined by his bank account, but by his actions when no one is looking, the honeymoon surprise instead of jetting off to an exotic resort. Leonardo surprised Camila with a honeymoon that reflected their shared values. He had purchased a small, run-down art center in Millbrook and spent months having it renovated in secret. This is your wedding gift, he said as they stood before the beautiful new building. The Camila Rivera Community Arts Center. A place where children from all backgrounds can discover their creativity. Camila burst into tears of joy. You remembered my dream. I remember everything about you, Leonardo said, pulling her close. Your dreams are my dreams now. The first challenge, their first months of marriage, were blissfully happy. But their first real test came when Leonardo's company faced a hostile takeover attempt. Sebastian Cross had partnered with international investors to buy out Leonardo's shareholders. We could lose everything, Leonardo told Camila as they reviewed the financial documents in his home office. Define everything, Camila replied calmly. It's the company, the penthouse, most of our liquid assets. We'd still be comfortable, but we'd still have each other, Camila finished. The art center would still help children, and your mothers. Jewelry would still make me feel connected to your family. Everything that actually matters would remain. Leonardo stared at his wife in amazement. You're not worried about losing the money? I married you when you had money, and I'll stay married to you if you lose it all. That's what for richer or poorer means. The corporate battle with Camila's unwavering support, Leonardo fought the takeover with renewed determination. But instead of using the ruthless tactics that had built his empire, he chose a different approach. He appealed directly to his employees and smaller shareholders, explaining his vision for the company's future. This company isn't just about profit, Leonardo addressed the packed auditorium. It's about innovation that improves lives. About providing good jobs for people who believe in our mission. If we sell to Sebastian Cross, those values disappear. The speech, broadcast live to news networks, showed a side of Leonardo that the business world had never seen before. He spoke passionately about social responsibility, employee welfare, and long-term sustainability over short-term profits. The surprise Aletha. Takeover battle took an unexpected turn when Leonardo received a call from an unlikely source. His former assistant, Patricia, who had left to work for a nonprofit organization. Mr. Montenegro, I've been watching the news coverage of your situation, Patricia said. I think you should know that several of your former female employees have started a social media campaign supporting you. What kind of campaign? There. Sharing stories about how respectfully you treated them, how you promoted based on merit, how you supported work-life balance. It's quite powerful testimony to your character. The hashtag Stand With Leonardo campaign went viral, with employees, customers, community members sharing stories about Leonardo's integrity and the positive impact of his leadership. Camila's strategic insights. The takeover battle intensified. Camila made an observation that proved crucial. Leonardo, you've been fighting this like a traditional business war, she said as they walked through their community art center, watching children create paintings. But Sebastian isn't just trying to buy your company. He's trying to destroy your reputation, your character, everything that makes you different from him. What are you suggesting? Stop fighting his battle and start fighting your own. Show people who you really are, not just what you've accomplished. The documentary Decision Acting on Camila's advice, Leonardo agreed to participate in a documentary about his life and business philosophy. The filmmaker was given unprecedented access to their daily routine, showing Leonardo not just as a CEO, but as a husband, a community member, and a man trying to balance success with integrity. The most powerful moment in the documentary came when Leonardo was shown reading to children at the art center with Camila beside him. His genuine joy and connection with the kids revealed a side of him that no corporate biography could capture. This is what success looks like to me now, Leonardo said to the camera. It's not the size of my bank account, but the impact we can have on young lives. Sebastian's final gambit, desperate to complete his takeover. Sebastian made one last attempt to destroy Leonardo's reputation. He leaked private financial documents suggesting that Leonardo had used company funds for personal expenses, including the renovation of the art center. The accusations dominated headlines for days. Leonardo's stock price plummeted, and several major investors demanded explanations. It appeared that Sebastian might finally achieve his goal. The truth revealed that. A packed press conference, Leonardo addressed the allegations head-on. With Camilla by his side, he presented detailed financial records showing that every penny spent on the art center had come from his personal funds, not company money. Sebastian Cross is trying to paint generosity as corruption, Leonardo stated, calmly. He's trying to turn community investment into a scandal, because he can't understand why someone would spend their own money to help others. But the real bombshell came when Patricia stepped forward as a surprise witness. She revealed that Sebastian had offered her money to make false statements about Leonardo's business practices. She had recorded their conversations. The victory. A value Sebastian's takeover attempt collapsed within days. Investors, embarrassed by their association with his unethical tactics, withdrew their support. Several of his own business partners distanced themselves from his company. More importantly, Leonardo's company emerged stronger than ever. The public battle had highlighted his commitment to ethical business practices and community involvement, attracting new investors who shared his values. "We didn't just save the company," Leonardo told Camilla, as they celebrated with champagne in their penthouse. "We proved that doing business with integrity isn't just morally right, it's profitable too." The growing family a year after their wedding, Camilla surprised Leonardo with news that would complete their happiness. "I have something to tell you," she said one morning as they had breakfast on their penthouse terrace. "Good news or concerning news?" Leonardo asked, noting her mixture of excitement and nervousness. "The best news," Camilla replied, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We're going to have a baby." Leonardo's face transformed. With pure joy? "Really? We're having a baby?" "We're having a baby," Camilla confirmed, laughing at his stunned expression. As they sat together watching the sunrise over the city, Leonardo reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A chance meeting at an art gallery had led to the greatest love story of his life. "Do you ever regret it?" Camilla asked, seeming to read his thoughts. "Giving up the uncomplicated bachelor life for all this domestic responsibility?" Leonardo pulled his wife closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit in his arms. "The only thing I regret is waiting 32 years to find you. And I regret ever thinking that love was something that only happened in fairy tales," Camilla replied. Their baby daughter Elena was born on a snowy December morning. As Leonardo held his newborn child for the first time, with Camilla radiant despite her exhaustion, he understood that this was what true wealth looked like. Years later, when business magazines wrote about Leonardo Montenegro's empire, they would always mention the art center, the ethical business practices, and the love story that had transformed a ruthless corporate raider into a man who measured success and happiness rather than dollars. But Leonardo himself knew the real story was simpler and more profound. He had discovered that the greatest fortune anyone could possess was finding someone who loved you, not for what you could give them, but for who you truly were. And in choosing to honor Camilla's innocence rather than exploit it in waiting for marriage rather than rushing into passion, Leonardo had proven that even in a world obsessed with instant gratification, some things were worth waiting for. The millionaire who had shocked everyone by stopping when he discovered his beloveds, purity had found something more precious than all his wealth combined, a love that would last forever. The end.